All right. Today we have Scott and Kathy here. Um, I am very excited about this conversation personally. I know people that I've talked to. This is a huge topic that we're talking about today, um, and we'll get into everything that you guys know about marriage. But before we do that, I want to know about your story. What's your marriage story? How did you guys meet? Love at first sight? All that good stuff.
Yeah, well, it was the 1960s and 70s that we grew up with, and there was a lot of confusion going on. I mean, there was a huge change in culture, and so you had the Beatles coming on, you had Elvis, you had a lot of women's rights. They voted on women's rights. I think it was the 1972 election, and you know, women were stepping out of their role that they had been in, and it was a time of great confusion for men because we didn't know. I mean, they were burning bras in public. It was crazy. And so the year was 1973.
Hmm.
Actually,
Got it right.
I
Yeah,
know
you
that
did.
I
Score
know
one.
it was October 16th. That was
Yes.
our first date.
Yep.
And we went to a football game, a high school football game. We went to different colleges, but I had the courage to ask her out, and so we went. And my grandfather was a ticket collector, and because I was really poor, he said, "Just pretend you give me a ticket." So we actually got
Got
in.
in for free.
We got the football game for free, and I mean it was like at $2 or something. But at the end of the game, we went to 7-Eleven to get some food because we were going to go out to my fraternity at the college that I went to. And so we bought some stuff, and as we're walking out of the store, I have this moment of crisis. What do I do? If I open the door for her in the car, I'm going to appear like a chauvinist. But if I don't open the door, I'm a bum. And so I'm having this debate going on in my mind. And all of a sudden, I just blurted out, "Oh, get the door yourself."
Fortunately, I laughed.
And so we went through that evening. But that was the dilemma that we had at that time. Nobody knew what was going on, and I didn't know exactly how to act in front of her. So our first date was rather
Well, the worst was then when we went to say goodnight, I called him Steve instead of Scott.
Wow.
So I
yes.
always say, well, I retaliated. He didn't open the door. He's been opening the door for 50 years ever since, so
Yeah,
we
so
knew. But
that was our first date, and we dated in college, and
he was a sophomore. I was a freshman.
Yeah, so you guys are like 20 ish.
Not even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm 18 when we meet, 19 when we get married, and he's exactly a year older. Uh, we met at church in between the two colleges
Okay.
and started dating, and a year and a half later we got married.
yeah, we at first were going to get married when we graduated, but then we said, let's move this up,
So then he said, "We'll get married when I graduate." Well, that was a year before me, and then a couple months later, he's like, "Let's just get married when you graduate, before. Um, we're not even going to wait, you know."
Yeah.
So, but we knew we were really young, and we were wise enough to know that we weren't wise enough to know whether this was a good decision. So we decided we would ask our four parents, three of whom were believers, one was not, and our pastor. And if any one of those five people told us this is not a smart thing to do, then we would wait. We would take that as God's way of showing us whether this was a good decision or not. And all of them said, "Go ahead."
yeah,
Which now you look back and think I would never tell my children that, but for us it worked.
yeah,
It
and
worked.
you know, we say that we grew up together because we got married early, but we didn't have a whole lot of ruts that we were in, and we grew in our habits of even adulting. And so that was a good thing for getting married early.
Hmm.
The, the, the aspect that saved us is that we, relied on God's wisdom a lot right from the start. And so as we navigated through problems and stuff like that, we really did try to apply biblical principles early on that kept us on the right course and got us through the early years.
Yeah. No, it's such a great story. And also, side note, for anyone that's not watching, if you hear birds or chimes, we are in Scott and Kathie's beautiful back porch. So hopefully the birds aren't coming through too loud. But no, I think to your point about just growing together. Yeah, I mean, 50 years, like you guys have been through probably so many versions of each other.
Yes.
And one question that I do have too is, you talk about that first night that you met your first date. Was there like a when you know moment? Like I've thought, like, is that even true? Is that real? Did you guys feel that at any point?
I think he felt it long
Much,
before
yeah.
I did.
I think men fall in love much quicker than women, and I think there's obviously I was attracted to her beauty, but she was also very competitive, which I really liked. The thing was, she kept beating me, so I said, rather than let her keep beating me, I'm going to get on her team.
There you go.
So we played pool that our first night, and I just barely beat her in
He
that.
didn't know I grew up with a pool table at my house.
And then we went bowling, and she beat me in bowling.
By a lot, but my family bowled all the time. He
She,
didn't know that either.
she
Playing all the right
He
sports.
picked all the right
She
stuff.
bowled 170, and I'm thinking, what? This is a superwoman here. And then we played Monopoly one time, and she beat me in 20 minutes. So I said,
Monopoly is.
That's mostly luck, but
Yeah.
I grew up playing a lot of board games,
said
so he
that's-
picked the good things to
that's-
start with.
We always joke because her grandfather said about the grandmother, I looked at that girl and I said, that's the girl for me. And early on, I felt that. I really felt it. And we had a spiritual aspect that was really good. So we proceeded.
Yeah, for me it was a little slower. I was actually dating a guy from high school when I met him,
I didn't know that.
Scott.
I did not
Yeah.
know that.
but he was away at a military academy, and so he had a long-term commitment before there was going to be anything in our relationship. I wasn't looking to get married. I was 18. I was going to go to college for at least 4 years before I got married. But I can remember probably a month or two into dating him, we went out to eat, and he said, I want to pray for the food before. Now, I was a fairly new believer. I'd only really been a Christ follower about a year by the time I went to college. And I had never been with somebody who actually wasn't going to pray in a restaurant in public. And I remember that striking me as like, this guy is all in. Like, his faith is not Sunday morning. He's the real deal. And that really was the first thing that made me say, this could go somewhere, seriously. So,
And then, on our early dates, we talked about deep stuff. I mean, it was a deep dive into each other's value system, and it wasn't superficial. And all of a sudden, as we start revealing ourselves to each other, I'm thinking, wow, this is a woman of character, and that's what I wanted.
and he was tall
Yeah.
and handsome. He had hair then,
Good-looking
too.
guy.
I
Yeah.
had hair back
Nice
then.
broad chest. So
She rubbed it all off. I'm the Velveteen Rabbit.
Yeah, see, that's right. It was love.
Yeah, so you guys obviously have a great story. Been together 50 years. I, at this moment in time, don't know if I'm going to call your episode an expert episode or a mentor episode. It's probably a little bit of both. But can you speak to, like, both of your experiences somewhat more on the expert side of working with other couples in marriage?
Yeah, I was in ministry for 50 years, actually more than 50, but during that time I did premarital counseling, and we have actually done premarital counseling together now for the past few years. We also do just marriage counseling. That gives us an opportunity to use our expertise and what we've noticed over the years. We're also in the process of writing a book that I'm hoping to, we're sort of halfway through, But
And
it's
we're not mentioning that because we want to plug it because we give
It's
them away.
free.
We're
It's
not. We're
free.
not going to
Let's go.
sell it anyway. So.
Yeah. And it's about marriage.
Yes.
Just to be
Yeah.
clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be devotionals that a couple can go through, and it'll help facilitate their conversation as well as developing habits. So we're hoping that that'll be done. It's easier to write in the winter when you're snowed in. Right now, it's too nice to be. We want to be outside.
But Scott did a lot of work with couples in crisis, obviously, when he was a pastor, because people would come to him. And then over the years, we've been asked to speak quite a bit. Moms groups that we spoke almost every year, they'd ask us to come do a talk on marriage. We did a big retreat for a church for a weekend. We've spoken at other churches about marriage, so seminars, things like that.
Yeah, we have made so many mistakes that we
And
want.
we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
We want to warn people. These are the speed bumps because every marriage is going to have basically the same speed bumps. If you're prepared for those speed bumps as they're approaching, your car's going to make it through. But if you hit hard and then you don't take the right steps, that can be fatal for a relationship. So we're all about trying to keep people connected, growing, and maturing together.
Yeah, I mean, especially one of the big reasons we're having this conversation is one, quarter lifers, people my age, I'm 27. I don't know what marriage is. I just know based on what I grew up with, what I saw, what you see, all those things. But I mean, outside of that, I feel like everybody knows that half of marriages end in divorce. It might be more, I don't know. But it's obviously such a serious topic. And, as we dive in here, like you guys have talked about, when I put up on my Instagram story, hey guys, I'm talking to a couple that's been married for 50 years and we're going to do a podcast episode. A bunch of people chimed in with questions that they had. And to your point, Scott, a lot of the questions were about conflict and how do we work through that. And we're going to get to that. But I think to lay some of the groundwork, to start with one of those questions, what even is marriage, right? Because I think we need to start there of just defining what this thing is in the first place. What would you guys say is marriage?
Yeah.
We would say it's two flawed people in a relationship in a broken world, if you want to put it in simple terms.
Yeah.
But
And it's also a commitment in that broken world to help the other person reach their potential, their maximum potential. So we realize we're both broken, but we're on this journey. We are both committed to each other's well-being, and so we're trying to maximize our potential through each other, and that's what marriage is. It's about the other person. Mm-hmm. You can't have a focus. Well, it's about me. You're making a commitment to the other person to make them the center of your life, which is, in our marriage seminar, we call it a ministry mindset. You go into the marriage ministering to the other person, helping them reach their potential.
yeah. And we would also say, it's a gift of God. It was instituted right from the very beginning, and it was there before there was ever any sin in the world, before the fall. So it was part of God's perfect plan.
Yeah, and he gives us the instructions in Genesis chapter 2 that it's a relationship that should be exclusive. It should be permanent. It says become one flesh, which means it's work. I think a lot of people don't understand that when you get married to some person, the goal of intimacy is work. So we have committed ourselves to that and want to include that in that definition, that becoming one flesh is work. It's a process, but overcoming the brokenness in our world and in each other is something that commitment can help you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like something for just commitment in itself. we have talked about this before, but I feel like it's important to hit on. Of just, I remember seeing a stat like people living together before marriage is actually a bad idea. I don't know what the stat is, but
Much higher divorce rate.
yeah, correct. Why is that?
Well, they're going into it, I call it they're playing house without the foundation. So they're going into it with the mindset of if this doesn't work out, I can be out of here very quickly without any legal ramifications. And I'm going to commit to you on a physical level and maybe some other levels, but how much of myself am I going to totally give if I'm not sure where this is headed?
And I think that sociologists have labeled this commodification. I'm in this relationship as long as I get more out of it.
Yeah.
If I have to start giving, hey, I'm going to cut my losses and move on. And so they miss that wonder of commitment. And love is not so much of a feeling, it's a choice. You choose to love a person. And in biblical terms, it's called agape love. It's God's unconditional love. And when you commit to giving that other person, that's the key that unlocks the door to a fabulous marriage.
And the commitment is not just that we're going to stay married. I mean, my parents' generation, that was very much like you just didn't get divorced. But there were so many unhappy marriages. The commitment is really, we're going to work on this and we are going to stay together, yes, but in that staying together, we're committed that when problems come up, we are going to try to work on them. We're not going to just stay married as roommates
Right.
or worse.
And we've had some serious disconnections over the years that we've had to work through. And, we didn't threaten, well, I'm going to divorce or I'm walking out. No, we made a commitment. Yeah, it's tough right now, but we're going to work through this. And so, that's what we encourage. We encourage this commitment as the foundation for a relationship.
Well, it's like there's no way out. I feel like sometimes, look, I'm not married, not even close. But if you don't, I mean, for me, entrepreneurship, right? I'm going to make this thing work no matter what. My back is up against the wall. There's no other option. Yes, realistically, there are other options. But to me, the way I see it is there's not. And I feel like that's kind of a parallel of we made this commitment and that's that, which, kind of speaks to the seriousness of the commitment itself. Is that something you guys think? Do we not take marriage seriously enough these days, you think?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was William Bennett was invited to a wedding ceremony. And in the wedding ceremony, they said, I commit myself to you as long as love lasts.
Hmm.
Which isn't a commitment at all.
And he sent them paper plates as
Yeah.
a wedding gift. Because, love will last as long as you choose. In a sense, you got to burn the ships. I'm marrying this person. Mm-hmm. I'm going to burn the ship. I'm not going to look for a way out. We're going to work through this. And that's the beauty of marriage. In a world of uncertainty, you have this certainty, this person's committed to me.
And we've seen some really bad marriages that were in deep, deep trouble that came back. That I think if they had just been living together would have parted ways. But instead they stuck it out and now have really good marriages.
Yeah.
So it's possible to come back from even a really dark place.
And so, Scott, you have something here that you so graciously put together. For people watching, Scott's going to show you something. We'll show and tell you.
This is really high tech. This was designed by a guy from Yale. His name is Steinmetz. And he's putting together the ingredients in a good relationship. And there's three sides to it. There's intimacy, which is friendship and getting to know each other, becoming best friends. There's passion, which is sexuality and connection. And then the foundation of this is commitment. And even secular scientists realize that this commitment is absolutely necessary to have a relationship flourish. And that's why we recommend people not live together, but make the commitment so that that relationship can flourish and grow.
And for those that weren't watching, that was a triangle with the bottom line of the triangle is commitment.
Yep.
So we're talking about the Bible. You guys are mentioning that. That's obviously a core foundation of your marriage. I understand that not everyone listening to this right now is a believer in God. But before we talk about that, and kind of to segue into that, why is it important to lean on the Bible for truth about marriage?
I do this illustration in a sermon that I preached, and I've actually used it for weddings. And I bring out a question to the audience. I say, on the count of three, I want you all to close your eyes and point to the north. 1, 2, 3. And then I say, okay, open your eyes, keep your hands up. Everybody look around. And what you see is the whole congregation. They're all pointing different directions. And the point that I'm making is it's really important in life to find true north. You need to find a stabilizing, guiding foundation for your life. Otherwise, you are reduced to yummy and yucky as the guiding moral foundation of your life. And we have, for our entire lives, our married life, used the Bible as our true north. And the Bible teaches us stuff that we wouldn't naturally do or be committed to, but we believe this is wisdom from God, and so we commit ourselves to that, and that becomes the guiding factor in our lives. And if you don't use the Bible, what's your moral foundation?
Well, when we met a few weeks ago, and that bird is really loud. When we met a few weeks ago, we talked about a little bit more about you guys growing up and what you saw in your parents' marriages growing up. And I think, look, to zoom out a little bit, not even just with marriage, but anything, I've certainly realized there's so much information out there these days. What am I supposed to believe? What is true and what is not? And luckily, like I have found, I agree with you guys, that the Bible is my true north as much as I try it. Like, that is the goal every day. But also with that, right, for the people that are not believers in God, don't even know what the Bible is maybe, what would you say to them, before we really dive into this? Obviously, it's a foundation of your marriage, and you believe all marriages, but what about the people that don't have a relationship with God?
And I would say, just base your life on 2,000 years of the development of Western civilization, which is based on the Judeo-Christian heritage. And yeah, in the 1960s, we threw that out, but I don't think we got any better by throwing out 2,000 years of growth and development based on biblical principles. And, we don't try to force anybody to believe what we believe. We believe in total freedom, and we respect people that don't agree with us. We can have great friendships with them. It's just we have a moral foundation that's going to be different than theirs. And we just challenge folks, be pragmatic about it. I mean, was life so bad, for 2,000 years? Yeah, there were some huge mistakes that were made, but I mean, it got us to where we are. And we just encourage that non-believers at least consider the moral foundation found in the Bible.
And there's so many practical things in the Bible about marriage. You can read a lot about forgiveness, about sacrifice, about submitting to one another, about using words that build your partner up rather than tear them down, that look to meet their needs. So there's just a lot of wisdom there that even if you don't follow Jesus, that wisdom has stood the test of time. And I'd be hard pressed to find someone that would say, well, I don't need forgiveness in a marriage, or I don't need to sacrifice in a marriage. You can't have a marriage without those things. And the Bible gives lots of ways to have those incorporate into your marriage.
And the Bible also very strongly argues for the permanence of relationship. You know, this is not temporary, but stay with it, work through it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is you can still do the things, and then you guys kind of lose that. Like, you can still do the things that everything that we're about to talk about, we've been talking about. You can still do those things in a marriage, regardless of kind of like where it comes from.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And so, you know, we kind of talked about this before, but I'm sure there's more here. Like, what do most people misunderstand about marriage? Which feels like a loaded question.
Well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
You want to share about what you ask people in premarital counseling, your first thing?
Yeah. So when we start the premarital counseling, my first question is, why do you want to marry this person? And I will get a response that is 90%. This is the answer. The person will say, I want to marry this person because they make me happy. And so after I hear this, and it comes out in different forms, but I'll say, okay, let me just pause a second and tell you what I just heard. You're saying to me, you want to marry this person because this person can make you happy. And so their job for the rest of their life is to make you happy. That's what you're saying to me. And they back up. Well, not really. But I said, you just said that. And so that's a huge misunderstanding because happy marriages are not caused by people. You know, happy. If you find a happy marriage, you're going to find a person who's happy in that marriage. But to put the pressure on the other person, okay, for the rest of my life, I need to make this person happy. It's way too much. That's a huge misunderstanding.
And you can't. Yeah.
And it's like kind of what you're saying on that. It's just happiness is a part of marriage, but it can't be the only part of marriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't look to your spouse to make you happy.
Yeah, they can't be the source. And on that, I'm glad you brought that up because I do think that is a huge issue of, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like I've done it in relationships. You make the other person your everything, your idol, your source of happiness, all that stuff. And then when things go wrong, when you have a fight or when things just aren't going well in the relationship, then you as a result are completely destroyed and you crumble because of it.
Right.
And I think that points to also, right, with the spiritual side of things, of God is the source of like love and happiness. Like you guys would say that, I would say that. And what we're actually really looking for in our spouse is actually like, we're looking for perfect love, the agape love that you talked about. And that can only come from God. Like we can't expect, right, two broken people. You guys can't expect each other to be perfect all the time. Like Kathy, you always meet Scott's needs every day of the week. You're always perfect. Like, yeah, that would be great, but that's just not realistic because we are broken people, right?
Yeah.
Totally. I think another misconception is people don't realize how much marriage is going to confront your own selfishness and your own sin. And when you're single, it's all about you. I remember probably 25 years into our marriage, Scott went away for a weekend. The kids were all out or in college. And I was like, this is the first time I've been home alone a whole weekend with nobody else. And it was so different. I didn't cook dinner. I didn't have to eat dinner at a certain time.
I stayed up till 1 in the morning.
I stayed up till 1 in the morning reading a book. I got to hold the TV remote myself. I mean,
What
really.
a sacrifice.
Could watch what I wanted. And I really thought, wow, I'm so used to having to meet other people's needs. I've forgotten how different that is. And you think about it, let's say laziness. So I've had a tough day at work. I'm on my way home. I know I'm supposed to get groceries tonight. There's nothing in the house, but I'm just lazy. I'm not going to do it. And I know my spouse will have nothing to take for lunch tomorrow for work if I don't do it. Well, I'm confronted with, what am I going to do? Am I going to go home, or am I going to go get groceries? Or I really want to go to the gym after work, but we texted during the day and he had a really tough day. He could really use moral support. I should go home and help him make dinner, but I really want to go to the gym. Which one am I going to do? It confronts my selfishness. I'm at Marshall's. There is a really cute pair of shoes. I want those shoes, but that was not in a budget that we agreed upon. So you constantly are confronted with, it's not all about me. And I think God uses marriages to grow us, to help us become
Yes.
not selfish.
I had a counseling situation where a very important guy at a big CEO of a company was coming home, and he came home every day, and he was expecting his family, his wife, to minister to him, take care of him, bring him the newspaper, rub his feet, the whole bit. And the marriage wasn't working. And so we talked about it, and I said to this guy, I said, how about if you reverse the role and you go home even after you've given yourself in your job, and go home with a ministry mindset? And so we came up with this idea. 1 mile from his home, he would start praying, Lord, fill me with love, fill me with strength. I'm tired right now. It's been a tough day, but I want to go home and minister to my wife and my kids. And he started praying that. And there was a total switch in his marital relationship, because he confronted that selfishness, and he said, Lord, give me strength to minister to others. A good marriage has to have that component.
It's funny. I saw something yesterday. It's actually another podcast, the Mighty Pursuit podcast, great podcast. But they were doing one about marriage, and they somewhere in the post there was like, the root of most issues with marriage or divorce is basically like, I'm right, you're wrong, more or less. Like, I feel like that's probably, is that true? Have you guys experienced that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go across the board. They say most people, the main fight is money, but that is, I'm right about how we're going to spend it and you're wrong. Or communication, I'm right and you're wrong. And expectation, this is what should have happened, I'm right, you're wrong. I mean, who's going to do what around the house? I'm right, you're wrong. This is how we fold the towels, I'm right, you're wrong. I mean, whatever.
And it basically comes down to pride.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
That I have the right worldview and you need to. And that was our first year.
Yeah.
That was our first year struggle, because I knew the right way, she knew the right way, and they were different. And so you had to negotiate, okay, well, how are we going to put this together into a family, into a marriage that works?
How can we dive into that? Because I feel like how did you guys work through that? How do you work through that with people when there is such a conflict where maybe both people aren't budging? How do you work through that?
You have to get them to buy into the fact that the marriage is more important than them being right.
Yep.
That has to be your overriding goal. And you have to make them realize, and we had to realize, you're shooting yourself in the foot when you're right all the time, because in the end, it damages your marriage, and you're half of the marriage. So it's what do you want more? Do you want to have a flourishing marriage that's going to bring you a lot of joy, or do you want to be right?
Yeah, we use the illustration. Do you want a nickel of pride and getting your own way, or do you want the dollar of a flourishing marriage? And every time you insist on that nickel, you're creating disconnection, and you're creating a crisis, really. And so a lot of times couples go through these situations where pride has come in and they want their own way. And what happens is that it's like a little torpedo hitting a boat. One little one won't sink it, but you get 20, 30 of these torpedoes coming in, marriage is in difficulty.
And I think when people first move in together, there's all those little things that are done differently. And you have to realize our ways are not, one's not better than the other, they're just different. And you have to be willing to say, okay, I don't necessarily like the way that he does that, but there's nothing wrong. It's just different than what I'm used to. And that makes it be, this is not so important that I'm going to fight over. Does it really matter? So,
And if you have that ministry mindset, you're willing to yield.
yeah.
And I realize we're totally different. We really are. Men, we're different, but we're on the Enneagram. She's a 1,
Yeah.
I'm an 8. We're not supposed to be married. They tell 1 and 8s, don't get married. But she's also very much into detail, and I'm big picture. And so all of these created conflict early on until we learned to celebrate. I celebrate that she loves to do edging and wallpaper because I hate it. And so you start to learn, okay, we're different, we have different views, but when we put those together, now we have a strong relationship because I can paint big, like your dad, 18 inches,
Yeah.
we were painting one time, and your dad just covered the walls in a nanosecond. But that's what I can do well, but I can't do what she does.
Yeah, the detail.
Yeah. So you learn to work together and appreciate what the other person brings.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, in terms of like the logistics of working through that, I'm sure you guys do this in counseling, but the communication aspect of laying it all out there, like, this is how I see it. Like, how do you see it? And you really probably have to take a lot of the emotion out of it. One of the sayings I love is seek to understand, not be right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what you guys are talking about. That's
Yeah.
the approach of, like, we have to talk about this. We do have differences, but yeah, like, marriage is a team sport, and you kind of have to deal with the fact that hopefully, honestly, the right answer is probably hopefully you're both wrong, and right, there is that middle ground hopefully that you kind of land on.
And you have to figure out how important is this issue to the other person. We don't use it, but we've seen people like rate, okay, here's this issue, we're at a stalemate. On 1 to 10, how important is this to you and how important is it to you? And so if it's a 9 for me and a 2 for you, then let's do it my way because it matters to me. So like for painting, my personality, if I'm going to have to sit in a room and look at an edge that's crooked, it is going to bother me every day of the week. And he knows that. So he's like, I'll roll the big part and then see you. I'm going to go out in the yard. And if I want to spend 3 hours making the edging perfect, he's cool with that because he knows that that's super important to me. And you respect what really matters to the other person.
What's really funny is at Christmas time, I used to help her put the Christmas ornaments on the tree. And so I would put them on, and I noticed her take mine and move it to a different space. Because there's a specific order in which these should go. And
Of course, the
little
ones go on the top and the big ones go on the bottom, right?
Yep.
well, this bothered me for a long time. And finally I realized this is a 9 for her, and it's a 1 for me.
Yeah.
So what I do is I put the tree up, I get all the ornaments out.
He gets
I put
all
them
the
in.
boxes from the attic, the basement, carries them all. It's great.
We haven't had a conflict over a Christmas tree in
Decades.
40 years now. But it was a learning process
Yeah.
by which, my way, let's just get this done. No, that's not going to work with her. But it's not that big of an issue to me. So we celebrated the difference, and I do the big moving. She does the small stuff, detail.
Yeah, I like that. I like the how important is this to you 1 to 10. I feel like that's huge. That's such a simple, tangible way to work through conflict.
And you did mention something too, though. The whole thing of repeating and confirming is just to be heard is so important. Not just to state, well, this is what I believe, this is the right way, but okay, tell me your way, and then repeat. This is what I heard you say. to be heard is very, very important in any conflict or any disconnection. So, to understand the other person and to say, this is what I think you're saying. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And when a person feels understood, boy, you can diffuse a lot of bad situations.
Yeah. Kind of to go back to, right, the triangle of commitment, intimacy, passion that you brought up. Are there, to you guys, what are the most important parts of marriage?
So we have those three. We've kind of hit pretty strongly on the commitment part, but I would say that they're in a triangle. It's an equilateral triangle. You need all three of them.
To
and
balance.
so, the intimacy, if you break the word down, into me, see. And so that you can see a picture of that I need Scott to be able to see inside me, to know what's really going on. So it's a vulnerability on my part, and honesty, and a willingness on his part to want to know that and to ask good questions, to listen well, so that I feel seen. It's interesting. We counseled a couple years ago, and the woman said to her husband in one of the sessions, "I don't feel seen." And what she meant is, you don't understand me. You don't understand my world, my hurts, what I expect from you. I don't feel seen. So intimacy, when both partners feel seen and accepted
Yeah.
where they are.
You in a good relationship, you want two components. You want to be known and you want to be loved. If you hide yourself, you're thinking, this person doesn't really know who I am. So how can they really love me? And if you're loved, but then you're rejected, that's devastating. So you want those two components. And it's much easier just to take your clothes off than it is to give people a deeper look at your being and what's going on inside your soul. And that takes time. That takes lots of conversations over the years. And so you want to unveil who you are on the inside, as well as just take your clothes off.
Yeah.
And that's the passion part of it. That's important.
Yeah. One more thing on intimacy. I think a lot of it is that shared experiences. You've got to have time together. You're not going to have those deep conversations if you spend 5 minutes at dinner talking. Shared experiences of doing things together. And for us, very much a shared mission in life. We're walking toward that same horizon. And so because we have those same goals, that creates a lot of intimacy and
we're
opportunities.
very intentional on mission. We get together with our calendars. Okay, how do we want to reach out? Who do we want to reach out to? How do we want to? We tutor in the Bridgeport Public Schools right now. We do it together. So we ride there together. We're in the classroom together. So we have, hey, how was it today? And, well, this is and it's just wonderful.
And even before we retired, we spent a vacation planning out what were our goals for retirement. And that was together. I mean, obviously we have separate goals for our own individual things, but as a couple, as a marriage, what do we want to do going into retirement? And I think that creates a lot of intimacy to have that shared
Yes.
sight.
Horizon.
Yeah, shared goals, shared, mission, vision, like you said. Yeah, where are we going? What's this all about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then passion, you want to hit that?
Yeah, well, it's just sex is sort of the engine light for your marriage, and if it starts to diminish or it just is not important anymore, you got problems in your marriage. Because a lot of times what happens is there'll be disconnections going on, and the way that you'll know that you're disconnected is there's just no passion anymore in the relationship. And we've seen passion needs to be intentional. It needs to be planned. It needs to be prioritized. And when it is, it's a wonderful, wonderful glue, according to Genesis 2, that unites man and woman in oneness. And so highly prioritize sexuality in the relationship.
And I think you saw a lot when people would come for counseling in crisis, how many of them had absolutely no sex life at all.
Yeah.
And then I think even what happens with people is they just get too busy. So I can remember probably 30 years ago, so probably early 40s, one of my friends confiding in me, well, we just have sex like once a month. To me, that's not a sex life. Maybe when you're 90, but and when you're 40, and it was because she was just too busy. They both had high-powered jobs, and Scott used the word planned and prioritized. People think, okay, passion, it should all just be spontaneous, in the movies kind of thing. But priority means we're gonna make an effort to make sure that this happens in our marriage, and what needs to go in order for us to have a healthy sex life. And we use something we call the Cheerios principle. And that principle is just, if you're too busy to have sex, what do you need to change? And it was, the way we present it is this. If you're too busy, then one night you need to say, we're not going to spend any time making dinner. We're going to save the energy and time from that. We're going to have a bowl of Cheerios for dinner so that we have time and energy later to have sex. And we spoke at a retreat probably almost 20 years ago, and I shared this principle. Of course, got great applause, especially from all the men in the room. So this was an afternoon session when I shared the principle. And that night we come back for the banquet dinner, big banquet hall in the hotel, beautifully set tables, floral arrangements, and on every table someone had put a bowl of Cheerios. So that was great. And then about 4 years ago I was in a meeting, and I went to introduce myself to a woman, and she said, "Oh, I already know you." She goes, "I was at a retreat, a marriage retreat for a week when you and your husband spoke." And then she looked at me and she said one word, "Cheerios." So it definitely, it hits a chord. And I think passion, though, also just includes the little things that you do every day. Uh, PDA or even private, PDA private, we hold hands a lot. We get up in the morning. I come in the kitchen, he's awake. I get a kiss and a hug and embrace for a few minutes. We always kiss goodbye before one of us leaves. When we were working, whoever came home, that's a hug and a kiss.
We don't have a dog, so there was
nobody to meet you at the door, But all those little things are very important.
Yes,
it's
very.
not just, sex in the bedroom at night kind of thing.
Right.
That makes the passion in your relationship. I mean, just yesterday I'm sitting out here and he went by in the tractor and he blew me a kiss. That still makes me feel good 50 years later. So those things are important.
There was a guy, and his name is Gottman, and he came up with this thing called bids for connection. And what he said, he actually said this. He said, this is one of the most important aspects of marriage, because a couple needs to respond positively to bids for connection. For instance, you wake up in the morning, "Hey, honey, can I make you a cup of coffee?" There's 3 responses to that. There's a positive response, "Yeah, I'd love to have a cup with you." A neutral response, "No." A negative response, "Why are you always asking me about coffee? You know that I don't like it, And so, how did you sleep last night? "Oh, it was a great night of sleep." "How'd you sleep?" That's a positive. A neutral is, "All right." A negative, "Why do you ask me about that? You know I have a..." What he found out was that in couples that have positive responses, their chance of divorce is very minimal. It's like 33%. Couples that have the negative responses have an 89% chance of divorce. Huge difference. And what you should work on is learning how to give those positive responses for the passion side of this, the connection side of it. It's very, very important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys mentioned that, because one of the common questions that I got when I put up that Instagram was like, how do you keep the spark alive after 50 years? So I'm glad you guys mentioned that. But also beyond that, you talk about sex being like a staple and how important it is. What other daily, weekly habits, monthly, yearly, have you guys found have helped kind of maintain your marriage and keep it alive?
we're going to use the word, I think, intentionality a lot, because those habits are things that you intentionally
Right.
build in. We made a commitment. We always had dinner together. A lot of times we were able to have lunch together because Scott worked next door. Didn't always do breakfast because I sleep later than he does. But I would say meals together. We pray together every day. We never go to sleep without praying together. Was an important habit. What else? Oh, we made a commitment early on that we would go to bed at the same time. I'm a night person, he's not. So this was a compromise, but one that we felt was very important. One, for conversation, just getting ready for bed, and then we've had some of our best conversations just before we go to sleep because we're in bed at the same time. And if I want to stay up later, then he'll go to sleep and I just stay in bed and read on my e-reader, and it works perfectly.
That
And
happened last night.
Yeah. And I think that also, made for a better sex life because you're in bed at the same time.
Yeah.
So more is going to happen.
Yeah.
Just because of that. We never had our phones or TV in the bedroom either, which was a good habit
Yeah.
for us.
In
Just
fact, we try to get off of that blue light, so, reading at night is really important.
Yeah.
I think, too, that we also, if I can use an illustration, this is Kathy, this is me. We have different worlds. So we tried to overlap our worlds and do things together, not necessarily that we have already done together, but new things. So I wasn't much into word games, and so for the first 20 years, I never won a game of Scrabble.
Well, you didn't play after the first couple of years.
Yeah, because I just
Gave up.
I get trounced in Scrabble, and then about maybe 30 years into it, I said, you know what, she likes Scrabble, so I'm going to play even if I get trounced.
30 years.
Yeah, I want to say maybe it was
Yeah.
20, but I remember being shocked because he said, I want to get the Scrabble board out. And I said, you hate Scrabble because I always win. And he said, I don't care. I know you love it, so I want to do it.
Yeah,
And we started to play, and now he's very good. He wins about half the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he loves golf, and so he really wanted something we could do together like that. And golf is a great sport because you can be totally different levels and still play together. And so I took up golf just so we could do that together.
and I like biking, cycling, and so she decided to start cycling, and then we even a few years ago, I got her an e-bike so that I can take my road bike at full speed, and she's just coasting along right
Before
aside
that,
of it.
he would pedal with one leg so that I could be at the same speed as him, which is really sad. And I think the important thing is you overlap, but this is not the goal.
Yeah.
You still have separate parts of your life and separate interests and time with your own friends. He still golfs with guy friends, and I with women friends. But you intentionally make sure that there's overlap in that, so
Yeah.
that you have some shared interests.
It
things
was
you can do
just
together,
this week we golfed with our grandsons,
which was awesome.
so that was a great transition experience that
Yeah.
we went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then taking a day off, so that we would have the same day off,
Sabbath day, yeah.
which was a little trickier because he worked on the weekends as a pastor.
Yeah.
But that was a huge commitment for us. Another one is we say I love you often. So we always say I love you at the end of saying grace for a meal. We always say I love you before we go to sleep, and then just other spontaneous times, but that's a habit. I don't think it's overused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were at an event once where they played the newlywed game, and they had the men go out and ask the woman a question and then come back and see if they matched. And the question was, how often do you say I love you? And this one couple, the woman was just stymied. She's, well, like maybe once a month. And I just thought, oh, that's so sad that's
Yeah.
the only time you hear it. I think that's a really important thing, to just continually tell your partner that you love them.
Why do you think that's important? To say it? Because I think you can show it, but why is it important to say it?
It just makes me feel secure safe, loved. I think, both of them are important. You can say it and not do it, and that's terrible. But I think equally to do it and then be like, well, I told you I loved you when I got married, and I don't need to say it again. I think just humanly, we want that verbal affirmation.
I think too it's important to say it so that you do it. What you're doing is you're making a declaration, and I think declarations are really important. I'm going to declare, my values, and my value is I love her. And so when I say it, oh yeah, that's my commitment. So it keeps the mission clear.
Yeah, and you talked about, I love the shared interest, the people that are not listening, the visual of taking both your hands and like intertwining them with doing similar things, taking up the other person's interests. But I do think, and Kathie, you mentioned it, I feel like to some people that can be like, whoa, like I want golf to, like, that's my time to be with my buddies and to not, like in a healthy way. I don't mean it in a bad way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that kind of what you guys are saying is, to me, it's setting boundaries both ways in terms of I want you to do certain things with me, but hey, at the same time, like I understand I need alone time, but I also need time with my friends, and those relationships with myself and with them are also very important to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we also were very intentional during COVID. Everybody was in isolation. So for that particular period of time, we set up a new practice. We called it New Day Tuesday. And at that time, we were taking
Tuesdays off.
Yeah. So every Tuesday, we would do a new thing. We take a new hike. We go to a new restaurant. We do a new experience. And so that kept the freshness alive. I think in each decade of life, you need to reevaluate how are you going to connect. I mean, right now she's in a period where she has some physical issues going on, and we can't connect in the usual way, but we're still connecting. And we might have to design newer ways as, we enter our 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I couldn't bike or golf or hike this summer, but we said, okay, we're going to go do sightseeing stuff then. Yeah, we'll go to museums, do something.
And so for me, selfishly, and for the people that are listening, the quarter lifers, how can I prepare for marriage now? What do I do?
I think you have to know who you are. You have to have your identity so that you, like we talked a little bit before, so you're not looking to another person to complete you. You have to feel complete in yourself, know who you are. And for us as believers, a lot of that is just realizing my relationship in Christ, how loved I am, and letting that be my foundation so that I'm not looking for somebody else to complete me. So really working on that part of your character.
Identity is huge.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll look to the other person to complete you. You have to be complete yourself. And that takes, some work. It takes, introspection. You need to know how you're wired. You need to know, how to connect with people. Bids for connection. You could do that right now. And so I think that the individual work on your own identity is the key aspect.
Yeah. And even knowing your own personality type so that okay, when I paint and what's important to me, so that when I get in a relationship, I'm aware of, is this conflict a real conflict, or is it because my personality type is this? If you really know yourself well, get to know yourself well.
And you need to know God well. And, I know there might be unbelievers that are listening, but you need to figure out your spiritual, moral foundation, because that's going to be your guide through all of life. And for me, it's a relationship with the living God, and I just encourage everyone to have that strong spiritual foundation so that you know what true north is, and you have something guiding you more than yummy and yucky.
Yeah, and the more mature you are in Christ, the less you're going to deal with those selfishness issues. The easier it will be for you to ask for forgiveness. The easier it will be for you to relinquish the need to be right. So a lot of those deep issues that every marriage is going to face, I think the mature you are in your relationship with God, that you don't, it'll just make your marriage easier. Do you have
Yeah.
a thing for that other triangle?
Yes.
So there's,
We got more visuals.
yeah, more
Let's go.
visuals, because if you think about two people in a relationship, as they become more and more mature. So here's the triangle. Here's me, here's Scott, and here's God. If I become more mature and he becomes more mature, we're closer together at the top of the triangle than we are at the bottom.
Yep.
And so if you both are really maturing in Christ, it's going to be a natural, deeper connection in your marriage.
Every good relationship's going to be a triangle. Because you cannot get enough resources in and of yourself to love that other person
Yeah.
unconditionally.
Right.
But if I experience unconditional love from Christ and he fills my heart, I use the illustration of a reservoir. So every morning I come in actually to this room right now and I ask God to fill my reservoir with his love. And then I go out into the day and I dispel that reservoir to her, to my family, to the kids we're tutoring, to my neighbors. And by the end of the day, it's gone. It's empty.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, I got to replenish that.
Yeah. I would say another thing is try to get your finances in order in preparation for marriage. So ideally not to be in debt and to have control of how you use your money. That causes a lot of problems in marriage. And if you're struggling with a lot of debt, that's a hard thing to bring in and have your spouse have to now carry also. Yeah. And then I think I would just say, don't settle. We've seen a lot of people
Yeah.
that have wanted to get married so badly that they make a poor choice. And we joke and we say, like, they married the guy because he was breathing. I mean, that was the only qualification you needed to have. And that's a disaster because they end up being lonelier in a marriage than they were when they were single.
Yeah.
And they expected that just being married would do it. And if you make a bad choice
Yeah.
and don't look for the right person.
And a lot of times they think, well, I can fix this person.
Yeah.
No, obviously we all need fixing, but don't go into, well, you know what? I know there's some pretty obvious red flags waving, but I'll be able to fix them.
Yeah.
No. Work on that before. And that's what you should work on today. Get rid of those red flags.
Did you have a visual?
No.
I'll show it now.
X that out.
Yeah, I got so many thoughts right now. I think one is like how, this is gray, but how do I know that my identity is in a good enough place to get married?
That's a good question.
Like, go ahead, sir.
I think there's one indicator. Who are you looking for to be the source of your joy and happiness? I was just reading today in my quiet time in the Psalms, and it said that my anchor is in the Lord, and He is my source for joy. So that's how you know your identity is good. When your joy is not found on a relationship or business success or in owning possessions, but your joy comes from your relationship with Christ, then your identity is firmly established and nothing can take it away.
Yeah, because otherwise, I'm just trying to look at it from the non-believer perspective. Otherwise, again, like we said earlier, you're idolizing your partner. To go back to marriage, you're making that the ultimate thing, and when inevitably things don't go well with that thing, marriage, business, you crumble.
cut your losses and move on.
Yeah.
That's what they do, you mean?
That's what they do. They
Yeah.
commodify the relationship. Now it's costing me too much.
Yeah. Right. And that's why so many end in divorce. That's what you're saying. Yeah. And on the don't settle one, I mean, I love that you brought that up because I personally feel like I am on the other end trying to make a perfect choice. Been single for a few years and like business, everything, like it's been busy in that regard, but I genuinely feel like I haven't met that person yet. And I feel like I think I'm almost doing the opposite of settling, like like I said, trying to make a perfect choice. But I do think the settling aspect is hard because people don't want to be alone. They don't want to, if it's not this person, like I found someone that loves me that checks a good amount of the boxes, maybe not all of them, but are they supposed to check all the boxes now? This is why we're having this conversation. Right. But I think it's a hard one for people my age, especially the older you get, because like I don't want to be alone my whole life, right? And like from my perspective, because maybe my identity is rooted in Christ, like, and just the faith aspect, I believe that, and maybe it'd be different if I was 37, not 40 or 27, but like I have faith that it's just like God's timing, right? And like that's because also it's like, well, what's the benefit from dwelling on it anyways, right? If you give in to the settling, then it's probably going to bite you down the road.
Absolutely.
And then if you, I don't know if there's really another end to that, but
there's there's nobody that checks off all the boxes.
Okay.
So what you have to consider is the most important boxes versus all the boxes. And the most important boxes would be intimacy, passion, and commitment. Those are three huge boxes. And for the passion, when that person walks in the room, does my heart beat faster? Just that might be a little bit yucky, but I think that's a real test. When she walks in the room, my heart still beats faster 50 years later. It's amazing. Yeah. But the intimacy, we've committed to each other to build best friendships in our relationship. And then the commitment level is, I know she's committed to me, and I know I'm committed to her, and so we're going to make this work out. Can I change her into not being a detailed person with a Christmas tree? No,
not going to happen.
But that's not the big one.
Yeah.
That's not the
and
big
the
one.
major one for a person of faith is, what is the faith level of the person I'm interested in? And I would say, a lot of people say, I'm just going to marry someone who's a Christian. Well, anybody says, well, I believe in God. Yeah. That's not what we mean. Is this a fully devoted follower? Do they have the same passion for Jesus that I do? Because otherwise that's going to be a major roadblock in our relationship.
Yeah, and we've seen that time and time again, where somebody marries someone that doesn't have that passion, and so they just sort of drift away over the years, and it's just tragic. So that's number one on the list. Are they walking towards the horizon of living a life to honor and glorify Jesus Christ?
And then I think, are they a person that's going to grow and change? Because like we said, none of us are perfect. Are they growing? Are they maturing? Are they open to realizing that they need to change? Are they open to constructive criticism, for lack of a better word?
Yeah.
So if you can see someone that responds well to the Holy Spirit and changing their life, I think that's a key component of someone also.
I'm sure how you handle disagreements and conflict before engagement /marriage is probably also a pretty good tell, because I'm sure as you guys probably experienced, it only gets harder from there.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. Some people think, well, once we get married, everything will be easier.
No.
No, it's now you're putting two lives together, and the other thing I would say about that is make sure you're having some conflict before, because if you've been dating a year and you've had no disagreement at all, probably one or both of you is hiding some of your real self or the things that really bother you for the sake of not wanting to shake the relationship up, and that's not an honest relationship.
Right.
So I think that's also a red flag. Oh, we've never had a disagreement. Ooh, I'm wondering what's really happening.
I'd love to talk about some of your guys' disagreements that you guys have had in the past, but because I think it's a real thing, and like I said earlier, one of the biggest things that people ask me to ask you guys, is how do we work through conflict? So, can you guys speak to maybe a difficult season, a hard season that you guys went through, and kind of how you worked through it?
Yeah. We've gone through two, three,
Too major.
two major disconnections, and one happened in 1985. And we had been married 10 years, and I was starting up a new ministry in Stamford, Connecticut, and every request from the church, I would say yes. And every request from Kathie and the family, I'd say no or not yet. And so we were drifting apart. I was not aware of it, which a lot of times the guys, we're not in tune with relationships as well as the women are, but I just wasn't catching it. And we call it the washing machine incident. So Kath used a beautiful word picture as we were downstairs in the basement of our house in front of the washing machine. And she said, I feel like I'm a leaf on the vine and I'm shriveling up. And you don't need me. The church is your priority. And she started crying, even sobbing. And I could have responded with, I'm doing the Lord's work. I got to somebody's got to put the bread on the table. But maybe for the first time in my life, I wasn't defensive. And I entered into her pain, and I held her, and I realized that I had wronged her by having wrong priorities. And so I asked for her forgiveness, and I said, not only do I want to ask for your forgiveness, but I'm going to make a commitment to do this better. And I said, I'm going to take a day off each week, and we'll spend it just you and me and our family. And I made that commitment in 1985, and I've kept it. Even in retirement, we still have, right now, it's Wednesday, is our Sabbath day.
Yeah.
And so we
couldn't record on Wednesday. I made sure of that.
But that was a huge disconnection, but because we had commitment to each other and we were going to work through it and we were going to learn from this, it was a trajectory change that probably saved our marriage.
Absolutely did.
Because I think if I had hardballed it and, no, I'm not doing that, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So that was 85.
Was that on that, before we go to the second one, was it hard for you, Kathie, was it hard to be like, to have that communication of like, hey, I need to do this? Because I'm sure you felt that before, but you're like...
I had even shared it before, but it hadn't penetrated. And I don't know why, but the word picture of the vine for him was what did it. It finally clicked that, oh my goodness, because he was spending some time, but he didn't have a set day off. So it would be like Tuesday at 3, he'd come home and be like, I have 2 hours. What do you want to do? When I'm in the middle of something, and I felt like I'm supposed to drop everything now because you suddenly have a few minutes for me. So it was more that I knew I was not the priority. But it's one of those things that needed to be confronted. So you've got to save your your conflicts and the things that you bring up for the things that really matter. That was destroying the health of our marriage. So I would say I had no problem because I'm not fighting for my way or what's right. At that point, I'm fighting for our marriage.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things there with the humility. That just, I feel like a lot of things do go back to what you just said. Like, marriage is a team sport, and when you have the priority of the marriage in mind, and not yourself, like the selfishness you guys talked about,
Yeah.
all of that stuff, it's probably hard to do, but that is exactly what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the crisis number 2.
Crisis number 2 was about 10 years later. I think it was 94. Scott had the opportunity to take a missions trip to Russia, which had just opened up from communism. They wanted people to come in and share the gospel in camps, and he was super excited. I mean, it was a great opportunity. And so he started to build a team. Our church in Stamford was very transient, so a lot of people were there a couple years, moved away, and he kind of put the call out. And people from all over the country were like, yeah, I'm going to come back and go with you. And before we knew it, I think there were 35 of you that went. And so it became a huge logistic nightmare for him to put together this to a very unknown, nobody had ever gone before. And so he was overwhelmed with this project, but super excited. And I, for my part, did not handle it well. One, I felt like, again, I was on the back burner. I should have realized it's for a very short time. I can sacrifice for a short time. And I honestly was scared. He's going to Russia. I mean, they landed in the airport, and there's guys with the
AK-47s.
and you know, and our 14-year-old's going with him.
Oh, man.
And he's doing this great, exciting thing, and I'm going to be home with 2 kids for 2 weeks. And at that time, there is no way to communicate. There's no email in the camp, nothing. So I'm not going to hear from him for 2 weeks. We don't do well apart. We really like to be together. So I was, I think, very selfishly, all the things that were going to be hard for me. And so he was so busy, and I just withdrew because of my own issues. So he goes to Russia and gets back, and we know we are not in a good place. And what we did then, he went to the elders and he said, I need a few days off. I called my mom and I said, can you come watch our kids? We need to go away. And we bought a marriage workbook
On intimacy.
and we just said, we're going to go away and we're going to do our own little, this is not like fun. We may go play golf or whatever, but the whole goal here is we're going to work on these issues and we're going to work through and resolve this. And that's what we did. I think we went away for 3 days.
Yeah.
And we just talked and talked and talked and used kind of the workbook as just a structure to help us go through. We did kind of our own little marriage counseling. We counseled ourselves. Yeah. But I think what we learned from that, too, is just when you have a crisis like that, you got to do whatever you can immediately then to stop it right then before it really, you can't ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, when the engine light goes on, putting tape over it doesn't work. You got to solve the problems. And, you know, we've made that into a rhythm in our lives. We used to go away twice a year. We would go away in the spring and the fall for a long weekend just to work on our marriage. And this was with kids. We just, Grandma, come on down.
Yeah, you mean when we had kids, we didn't bring them with us, but
Yeah.
during the during years.
We just took off because here we are 50 years later. I mean, we have wonderful kids, but they're not living with us. Yeah. It's us. And if you don't spend that time over the 50 year, you know, the 20, 30 year that you have the kids, you get to this point, and that's one of the highest points of divorce, is that couples that have put it into their kids and everything else, when it's empty nest, they don't even like each other anymore, so they move on.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like kids are a distraction for 20 years, and then...
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we always just felt the marriage is a priority above the kids. And our kids knew that. And it was like, this is you're great, we love you, but he's just a little notch ahead of you. Because he's going to be there forever. Yeah.
Well, and that trickles down to them if things aren't good with you guys.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great gift you can give your kids.
Yep.
You know, the security that their parents love each other and invest in each other.
Is there like a model of how do we resolve conflict?
I think for us, it's really important to talk. Stonewalling, the silent treatment does not work.
They should just know.
Yeah.
He should know why I'm mad. Yeah, I did that in the beginning.
Everything, telepathy. And we had to go through that
Yeah, in the
early
beginning,
on.
yeah.
But then it was, okay, tell me your perspective on this issue. Please, I want to know. And really listen. And then repeat and confirm. We talked about this. But I think that understanding where they're coming from is so, so important.
And we just had some ground rules that, you know, we didn't curse at each other. We didn't yell and name call or do, you know, you're just like your mother kind of comments. So we tried to more keep our comments to the issue rather than getting involved in extraneous things that just made it worse. And to resolve quickly, we have the biblical principle of not going to bed angry. I think maybe only once or twice in 50 years did we not resolve before we
Yeah.
went to sleep.
Yeah, I don't sleep on the couch.
Because, and yeah, we've never done that. And we just found if we didn't resolve it, we couldn't sleep anyway. We hate being disconnected, so we might as well stay up and figure it out.
And there were some late nights.
Yeah.
You know, if you saw me in the morning and I'm bleary eyed, you guys must have had a conflict yesterday.
And then just realizing, you know, some of the things that people get upset about, you know, your spouse makes a mistake. We've tried to have that team mentality that if one of us makes a mistake, it's our mistake together. How can we solve it versus you did that wrong and you screwed up there. And, you know, just recently we were at the pool and Scott locked the keys in the car.
In the trunk.
And
Man, I've been there.
yeah.
And I thought that it would, you know, be far enough or close enough to start the engine, but
Oh, it's just a push start.
Yeah. So he thought because they were still in proximity, it would be fine.
Yeah,
And then when he went to get in, and so it's just, you know, I'm not like you jerk, you left the keys in. It's just like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to.
Yeah, you were
them,
smiling
you know, and you just make light of it. So some of those things that could be conflict,
Right.
you don't allow to be a conflict. The nickel and the dollar, the trivia. We've been married long enough to appreciate every day we have, and we don't want to waste them with trivial things. Just only bringing up the things that are really important.
yeah.
And then just having Christ as a resource, because there are days when you don't have it in yourself to solve a conflict. So years ago, one Christmas, we had a really hectic December. He'd been away, I'd been sick, we had house guests, and now we have a party for his men's small group. And I get home from work, and he says to me, well, what do you need me to do? And that just hit me the wrong way. I was already on empty. You talk about having no resources left. And so I said, it's your party. It should be, what do I need to help you do? And I just walked away, and now we're disconnected. And he didn't respond well. I don't remember what he said. And I went down to the basement to get something, and I was just like, I can't go back up there and help him. Like, I'm just really ticked, and I shouldn't have to. And selfishness sets in, and I'm like, I'm tired. I've worked all day. It really isn't my party, and blah, blah, blah. I end up sitting on the washing machine. We have washing machine is the point in our marriage of these issues. And I just sat there and I was like, what am I going to do? And then the Holy Spirit lets me know, like, you were wrong. You could have easily just helped him and then tomorrow say, honey, next time could you just phrase that a little differently? Because if we're a team, it's not his party or my party. We've always helped each other with whatever ministry we've been involved in. So I feel very convicted that I'm wrong and I need to go back up. But I still sit there and wrestle with God and just say, why should I have to? Why should I? Back and forth. And finally I'm like, all right, I know this is the right thing to do. And I sat on that machine and I said to God, I know you want me to do it, but I don't want to. And that's a really hard place to be when you know what you're supposed to do, you know what God has told you, but you don't have anything left in you to do it. And there's times in your marriage when I think you'll get there, when people may be ready to walk and you know that's not what God wants you to do. What are you supposed to do? And so I prayed and I said, God, you need to change my heart. Please help me to want to do the right thing here. Please give me your resources, your strength, your love. And I sat probably another 10 minutes on that washing machine, just praying and praying before I was able to go up and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have responded that way. And then, we put things back together. But I think in conflict, that's where, if you have the resource of Christ, you have an extra weapon there to help you get through those conflicts
Right.
when you really don't want to.
That's so great. And it sounds like, too, I feel like, true or false, both people should say sorry. Like, I feel like Scott should have said sorry, too.
He did.
He probably did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't
Yeah.
respond right either. I mean,
Yeah, that's...
I started it, but then in counseling, we always tell people, all right, yeah, your spouse did that wrong, but your response was not correct either. Even when your spouse has done something hurtful, there's right ways and wrong ways to
Yeah.
respond to it.
We say it this way: you need to be right. You need to be right on the issue and right in your response. A lot of times you can be right wrong.
Yeah. Hold on, we should let-
Sikorsky helicopter.
We'll be right back. Anyways, Scott, what were you saying?
You need to be right.
Yes.
Right on the issue, right in your response. A lot of times you can be right on the issue and then you have a wrong response. So that's the goal.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like you guys have kind of talked about, forgiveness is critical in this.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, forgiveness is a choice, not a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a decision of the will where you say, because Christ has forgiven me of my debt of $20 billion, I'm going to forgive this debt of $125. And so when you have that perspective, you can say, I forgive a person, and you can release that. And then you assume the cost of that, hurt.
And there is a cost. Yeah.
To forgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then once that forgiveness is given, it's forgiven. It's gone. It's not, you can't bring it up 5, 10, 15 years later. The ledger is clear. And I've seen so many couples that have a grocery list of things that the other person has done wrong, and they just won't let it go. And no marriage will thrive when that takes place. Right now, there's nothing on either of our ledgers. It's just completely clear 50 years later.
It helps when you get old, too, because you can't remember them. But
Go ahead.
we also just, going back to that initial definition of, we're flawed people in a broken world. And it really helps to just remember, I'm flawed, he's flawed. So it may just be in some different ways we're broken. And if I could, I just want to read the lyrics. We love this song. This is Broken Together by Mark Hall of Casting Crowns. And he writes, what do you think about when you look at me? I know we're not the fairy tale you dreamed we'd be. You wore the veil, you walked the aisle, you took my hand, and we dove into the mystery. And he wrote this to talk about the problems that come. People expect it's going to be this blissful, Cinderella, perfect thing. And then he completes it and he says, maybe you and I were never meant to be complete. Could we just be broken together? If you can bring your shattered dreams and I'll bring mine, could healing still be spoken and save us? The only way we'll last forever is broken together. And so that kind of became a key word for us. It's just, we're both broken. And so I need his acceptance of me as a flawed person, and I need to give that same grace to him. I shouldn't expect him to be perfect. So when things happen, forgiveness is easier if I don't have that expectation that he's a perfect person. And I recognize my own brokenness too.
Yeah, that's such a good answer. And I think about before you said that too. I was just thinking about resentment. With all the little things that the list. I'm sure, and right, that's exactly forgiveness. Of you can look at it one of two ways. Like, yeah, you keep a tally in your head, or the slate's clean every time. And that goes back to communication, talking about it, forgiving, two-way street of being I guess, asking for forgiveness and then giving forgiveness and accepting
Yes.
it.
And asking is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've often said that. You need to go and say, would you please
Would
forgive
you
me?
would you assume the cost
Yeah,
of the hurt that I put into your life?
yeah.
Is it hard to get past that as the forgiver? Like you said, like the cost. Like when, like the scene with Scott's Christmas party. Like, is it hard to. I don't know if this makes sense, but is it hard to. Yes, I say I forgive you, but. Right, I don't feel it.
Yes,
Right?
yes, totally.
Yeah.
It's easier now after 50 years.
Yeah.
I would say it really doesn't bother me at all anymore. We hardly ever even have a disagreement anymore. We've solved them all. We've worked through all of those issues, and the rest we've decided aren't even worth our trouble. But I would say early on, yes, and it was very hard for me to be like, okay, everything's totally back to normal. I would need a little bit of time.
We had to process it.
Yeah. But I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes over time. And the more you keep trying to go back to focus on the things that we've said about God forgiving us and us not being perfect either. If you can keep reminding yourself of those things, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
What about when the person keeps making the same mistake? I don't know if you guys have dealt with that, but you know what I mean? When it's like, man, they just keep doing this. I mean, and we've talked about it. Maybe you see this in counseling, but how do you handle a situation like that?
Great question.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be boundaries for health in a relationship, and I would say if there's a repeated boundary breaking that's going on, or there's some addiction that you need to all hands on deck to work on that and solve that. And then there might need to be more of a, professional counseling and or a combination of spiritual and professional. But it doesn't mean you just gloss over the problem. It means you solve it, and you solve it to the best of your ability. And I don't know. You need to have a truth teller in your life, because if you don't have the truth teller in your life, you're just superficial in your relationship. And I always share this illustration. When we were first married, we were living in Allentown, and I'd made some barbecue chicken for lunch, and I just dove into it. And I had barbecue chicken all over my face. And Kath was the truth teller, and she said, "You have chicken all over your face. You better wash before you go out." And so, I don't know, I got busy or something like that, and I just went out. And I went to 3 stores, including Hackman's Bible Bookstore. And I had barbecue chicken all over my face in the sauce, and people would just laugh. They would just say, "Well, it must be a funny guy, And finally I came home, and Cass said, "Go look in the mirror."
Yeah.
And I did, and there it was. So, I think in all relationships you need to tell the truth. And whether or not that person, maybe it takes 3, 4, 5 stores to go to before you get it cleaned off.
Yeah. Going back, so that question about the repeated offense, if it is a boundary breaker, if it's a health of the marriage, got to deal with it. If it's something minor, I think there are times when you just eat it. So if Scott leaves his socks on the bedroom floor and I have to pick them up, and I've told him I don't want to pick your socks up, and he continually does that, at one point do I just say, as a gift to my husband, I can take 3 seconds and pick his socks up for him and just eat it? So to me, it depends on the level of the offense. If it's something minor, there are times when that's like, I'm going to just accept that that's part of his flawed character, which he doesn't do. I'm just using
I
that
don't
as
wear
a-
socks.
Yes, you do. Actually, you did do that early on. And I remember one time God saying to me, you know what, how hard is it for you to pick up his socks? And so I did. And then shortly afterward, you never left him on the floor anymore. But anyway, off tangent there. If it's worth the health of the marriage, then
You got to solve
you
it.
got to solve it.
And there's
But-
nothing wrong with professional counseling. Strongly encourage it, particularly for marriages that are stuck. And
It's actually a very healthy thing to do, is when you know you're in trouble, is to admit it and go seek help. It's the people who pretend or just hope it's
Yeah.
going to vanish on its own that end up in real trouble.
What about premarital counseling? I know you guys do that. How important is that?
very, very important. Because those speed bumps are going to be there. There's very, very structured speed bumps that are going to hit every relationship, including family of origin issues, role definition, conflict resolution, goals, finances. What else? Sex.
Yeah.
So they need to be talked about. Children. How many children do you want to have? And if you don't talk about it ahead of time,
Yeah.
it can really have an impact, a negative impact on the relationship.
Yeah. It can highlight areas that they haven't discussed or where they're having conflicts that they need to solve. The other thing I would say, if they're a wise couple, they would say to the person doing the counseling, what red flags do you see? Do you think that this is going to be a healthy marriage? And I would also recommend people that want to get engaged to ask people around them that they trust to say, do you think that this is the right person for me? Do you see anything? You've told a few people, I don't think you should get married after premarital counseling.
Right.
And one of them imploded shortly after when they didn't follow his advice. So that would be another helpful thing to do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times somebody else can see red flags that you're not seeing.
Yeah.
We've also known people that broke off engagements wisely that they could have solved ahead of time if they would have asked family. They would have told them right from the get-go,
Yep.
this is not a healthy relationship.
Can you shed some more light on some of the, like, if I didn't want to go to premarital counseling, what are some of those questions? Like, you list the categories, which I think is great, but like the questions, like, how many kids do you want to have? Are there more questions like that a couple that's serious, maybe even engaged, that they can ask themselves to, like, kind of clarify some things?
Yes. Yeah, I would say start off with the question of what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do they match up with the other person? I would ask the question, your family of origin. How did you see your father act? How did you see your mother act? What were the strengths that come from that? The weaknesses that come from that?
The wounds that come from that?
Yeah, because you're preparing for marriage the day you're born, because you're watching somebody, and you're watching how they react. It's kind of a scary thing for a parent, but so what did you see? What are the strengths and the weaknesses coming out of that?
Finances, are you in debt? Do you have problems sticking to a budget? How do you use your credit cards? Do you pay them off every month? I mean, those are things you want to know ahead of time. A lot of people have a lot of fights about money
Yeah.
and different opinions about it that
What-
you need to work out.
What's your conflict resolution model? How do you do it? Most people don't even consider it. Well, I asked that
I wouldn't
question.
think about that.
I asked that question in premarital counseling, and people go, "What?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, how do you typically go through a conflict? Let's just start there, and then we'll start identifying, whether it's silent treatment, blowing up, do they do any type of listening? Usually people don't do that.
We have a whole checklist for everything that needs to be done around the house, and then separately they ahead of time will check off who they think is going to do what. Good thing to think ahead of, who's going to cook
a
dinner,
good
who's
one.
going to do the dishes, are we each
Yeah.
going to do our own laundry, who's going to wash the car, who's
Do you
going to
want-
take the dog to the vet.
Do you want to have a dog?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
How many children? Do you have the expectation that you'll stay home at all with children, or are you going to work the whole time? But people can have very different opinions about that. How do you feel about daycare?
If there are disagreements in any of those checks, how do you, to me it feels like, well, there's probably some that are you can negotiate, find some middle ground. There's some that's like, right, it might go back to the how important it is
Exactly.
to you. Is that like
Yeah.
is that how you work through it?
Right.
Yeah.
Start with compromise.
Yeah.
Is there a middle ground here between my view and your view? But if there's not, then okay, we got to choose one of these. And
I mean, if it's a big one, like I want kids and he doesn't,
yeah, that's a game
that's
changer.
a major red flag. Like, you got to solve that before you get married.
Yeah.
And then the spiritual issues,
Yeah.
which I think are very, very important. You know, are we going to go to church? Are we going to go to a Bible study? Are we going to read our Bibles together? Are we going to pray together? You know, they have this statistic that's come out just recently that couples that pray together, their chance of divorce is 1 in 1,500. 1 in 1,500 for couples that pray together. So I think that's a critical question. Will we pray together? And then there was a Harvard study that came out that said, and there was over 6,000 people studying this for 15 years. They said couples that go to church are the most stable and happy couples. So, and it was a huge difference between those that did and didn't. So, what role will a church play in our lives?
And you would say that statistic, that is because of what we talked about, of like the triangle relationship with you two and God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of what we talked about.
Right.
Right. Guys, this has been freaking awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, is there one, I mean, just you guys being able to open up and share some stories, your experiences. I love that you guys are, like, I would call you experts in marriage and mentors in marriage. But it's hopeful, I think, too, especially these days, to have like somewhat of a model with you guys of just like, and also you're not saying it's been perfect. It's been very hard over 50 years, and there is a lot that goes into this, but I think it is a hopeful message, especially for people these days. I mean, I feel like some people just don't want to get married. I feel like that's probably happening more in light of a lot just that's going on in our world. But I appreciate you guys doing this. Is there any other kind of final thoughts, any other lessons learned about marriage that you guys want to share with us before we close it out?
I would just say it's worth every ounce of work and energy, because it's been the greatest blessing for us to have a great marriage and to be 50 years in and feel the way we do about each other. So as much as people are like, oh, I'm afraid I don't want to, do I want to? If you're willing to sacrifice and put it in, you get back so much more.
Yeah. And I would just say, and this is particularly to the guys, beware of toxic passivity. And what I mean by that is, I think more and more guys are having trouble making the commitment, that they really struggle with, saying, okay, this is where I want to go with my life. I'm going to make this commitment. I'm going to pursue this, whether it's a relationship or, even just going to church or being with Christ. I think I would encourage the men, step up, make choices to follow Jesus with your whole heart. And I think that will, in the long run, just be the most important trajectory change in your life.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you for having us.
And sorry for helicopters and birds.